Good morning and welcome back to TVP World. My name is Alexandra Semlinska and these are World Talks, the program where every word matters. Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin has said he had ordered his fighters to end their march on Moscow and return to their bases in southern Russia, averting what many expected could lead to direct clashes with the army and a potential civil war. Joining us now to discuss this matter further is Mr. Yuri Tabach, former chief of staff, NATO military liaison mission in Moscow, who was also based in Poland in the years 2002 to 2006 and was responsible for converting Polish military to NATO standards. Good morning and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning, Alexandra. Good morning, Paul. Good morning, world. Thank you for such lovely introduction. Delighted.
So let's start with the recent events regarding the march on Moscow with Wagner troops and the decision to call it off. What prompted Prigozhin to do what he did in the first place, and what made him call off this march on Moscow?
Alexandra, it's a million-dollar question, as we say. What prompted Putin attack Ukraine, and what prompted them to do a lot of things that they have done throughout the history, Russian mystery and enigma? They do these things and they say that Russian uprising is usually senseless and bloody. And this is another senseless, I think, move, although I think we've learned a lot. First, we've learned that Russian military was the second. In 2021, we knew that Russian military is the second military in the world. In 2022, we realized that the Russian military is the second military in Ukraine. And now in 2023, we've learned that the Russian military is the second military in Russia, because there's another military that's kicking their butt is almost in Moscow by a criminal. So underestimated this gentleman, he's not a gentleman, he's a criminal, this thug's ability to be a military leader, to be a leader who was able to rally people around him and was able to lead actually a fighting force at the front with the Ukrainian forces and with the Russian forces now as well. Strangely enough, Russians have accepted him. He did not really face any resistance from the local people, from anything like. And again, it's those. I think nobody like Polish people know in their history that this is what happens with them. All of a sudden, this rebel or this criminal that rises, and he's accepted by the people because I guess people rather live under a criminal than under a KGB thug. So they're better off with some criminal than with a czar who's out of whack. So this is what we're learning, but we're also, I think, seeing that they're negotiating, and now he went to Belarus. So I'm not sure where his forces are located, but it is a fighting force. It is an experienced force. So probably for the Ukrainians, it's going to be a little bit easier because now they don't have to fight these guys. And these guys were real fighters. I mean, they're like ISIS or they're like Al-Qaeda. So hopefully Ukrainians yesterday were happy on the streets of Ukraine, and I was in Kiev yesterday, so everybody were hoping that this will get the acceleration and the momentum and will go on. But it kind of died out, and they pulled back. But I think it weakened. Either way, it weakened the power concentration of central power in Russia, and Putin is probably now, his chair is shaking. My personal opinion and my knowledge of Russians, the way they are, is that they're clans fighting. So because Prigozhin was first a huge friend of the Chechen leader, or I mean, I don't like to call them Chechens. He's probably, as another thug out there that's fighting. He was hated by the KGB or FSB now, although I can't see the difference between KGB and FSB, and hated by the GRU, the military special forces and intelligence forces. And Prigozhin kind of took their side in it. And so I think they claned with him to fight Putin and the Minister of Defense against, so I think that there's a lot of political turbulence there where there are clans getting together and fighting with each other. So we'll see how it's going to come out, but there are definitely probably going to be changes. There are definitely probably, he's going to have to let Minister of Defense go.
So I'm just going to jump in here. I don't want to be rude, but there's so many pressing issues I would still like to discuss. You mentioned the negotiations with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, and he is said to have played a role here in reaching this decision. Can you tell us more about these negotiations and the agreement that was reached?
Well, you see, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows any details. I think there are a lot of rumors that are going around, but I think the negotiations were probably that he retreats to Belarus, where they will be able to have a safe passage to Syria. Because yesterday, while they were advancing towards Moscow, why do I think that the KGB or FSB is playing a big role in it? Because yesterday an airplane has landed in Russia, so it was cleared to land, that came from Syria, full of those Wagner or Prigozhin's mercenaries that would join him. So why would the Russian government allow them to land, to join the forces that are fighting against them, and without not shooting them down and giving them the green corridor? So I think that was probably the FSB that allowed that, because they want him to do this, to scare the authorities or to push back the Chechen leader back to his cave. And of course, the real Chechens that are fighting on the side of Ukraine and are fighting for a freedom of Chechnya were also very happy yesterday, thinking that this is their chance to do this. So now I think what is Prigozhin going to do in Belarus? He has not. So I think maybe the deal is that they will go to Syria, because in Syria they have way more freedom. They know how to operate there. They can conduct their criminal activity there, and so forth. So we'll see. I don't know. It'll play out in the next few days, and we'll see. The only thing that I was hoping for, and I was thinking, my wishful thinking was, can you imagine if Ukraine had all the weapons it was promised? Yesterday, there would have been their chance to stop bleeding and using their soldiers to attack the Russians or to protect themselves from it, to use the modern weaponry that the West has, that has failed to provide them. They would have pushed and cleared and would have been free now and would rebuild their lives. But unfortunately, we as the West did not live up to those expectations, and Ukraine will continue to fight and bleed for all of us. So
now this brings me to my next question. Do you think that internal disputes in Russia, might they be a gift now for the Ukrainian counteroffensive and help them in some way?
We hope so. I'm not the one to predict, because again, Russia is very unpredictable, and we know in history quite often nobody but Poles know better than that. And sometimes we hope for a better, that this tyrant is going to go away and a better one will replace. Nicholas the bloodiest Nicholas I. As soon as we get rid of him, Lenin will come in, and Poland will get freedom, and the world will get freedom, and Finland will get it. Lenin came in and things got worse. Then Stalin came in and that got worse. Then remember, we wanted to get rid of the Shah. He was so corrupt, Shah of Iran, get rid of him. As soon as we got rid of him, the Ayatollahs came in, did not get much better. The same thing with Castro and Batista. Castro came in, it wasn't better. A lot of things in history sometimes did that change. So we have to be very, very careful, because somebody like Prigozhin Could have been worse than Putin, or some, if some KGB thug replaces this KGB thug, he may be even worse. So we know this evil that exists there, and we need to destroy it. We need to destroy it and let Russia fall apart. I think that's responsibility of the civilized world. I think we as a civilized world cannot live with Russia in the form it is in today. Replacing the head of Russia is not going to help us. If Russia has to change its material, it has to change its texture. So it will stop creating those disasters in the world, blowing up dams, blowing up nuclear reactors. They will cause that damage because, again, our response to this environmental disaster they caused in Ukraine by blowing up that dam, we're sitting there, expressing our concern. Well, if I know anything, my career was built on fighting terrorism. This is a terrorist state. They will cause another bigger disaster. We should embrace ourselves for a bigger disaster because that's what they're going to do, because there was no response, because there is no response to Crimea. There is no response to invading Poland, or splitting Poland in 1940. It's okay. It's all right. Do not mobilize. Do not get Hitler upset. Well, Hitler was in cahoots with Stalin, and Poland disappeared for a period of time, thank God, just for a short period of time. The same thing, let him have part of Ukraine. It's okay, let's not get him upset. Until we're going to cut the head of that evil and crush him, and the whole world is going to get together and do it, we should expect bigger disasters. He's not going to stop. And this Prigozhin, to yesterday's event, did not stop him. So we'll see. Hopefully they will fall apart. Hopefully there will be some kind of a civil war there. But as we know, Russians, the centuries and centuries of serfdom, of slavery, and migration, and the gulags and wars have killed any initiative or common sense there.
So now, as we have one more minute left, I would still like to ask, based on what you just said, do you think might we be seeing the beginning of the disintegration of the Russian Federation?
Alexandra, I think myself, and all of Ukraine yesterday were praying very, very hard, very hard. Every religion, every race in Ukraine, and Ukraine today is a multicultural society. Everybody yesterday were praying and hoping that this is what's going to happen. I think the whole world is hoping that to make it the least bloody as possible. But unfortunately, so far, a lot of Ukrainian blood is flowing senselessly because we're not helping. So as soon as we get together, I think this is what's going to happen. But it's our initiative, the West. We should be the leaders in it.
All right.
And the United States, of course, we should be at the front, at the head of this.
And on that note, we'll be ending it. Thank you very much for your insight and for speaking to us here on TVP World today.
Thank you, Alexander. Thank you.
Mr. Yuri Tabach was my guest here on this edition of the World Talks, but do stay tuned for TVP World as there's much more coming up.